Last time on Zero to Hero, our boy Syl was working on multiple collections and working through End of Dragons. Will he survive the shoehorn politics and move on to greener pastures? Find out that and much more on this episode of Zero to Hero. Before I get into it, I'll warn you there are spoilers in this, and I don't usually do warnings, but if you are a story person, I'll definitely be talking about the story elements in this episode, so here is your warning. So last week I made it about 2/3 of the way through End of Dragons and I got to Arborstone, and I was pretty hell-bent on finishing the globalization mastery line. However, my playtime this week was extremely limited. Last week I was sick, I got behind on a bunch of other real-life stuff, which kind of held me back in my available playtime, and thus how much progress I can make on this account. This is actually where Guild Wars 2 shines in its game setup, because ultimately I'm not really missing out on anything. Overall, I'm about 7 weeks behind on collecting the antique summoning stones. So what is the harm in another week? The main issue is that I needed the globalization mastery unlock in the revitalization track, which was actually locked behind completing the story. So I really had no other choice but to replay the entire story to its completion. And I do have some thoughts on End of Dragons, so I guess it is a good time to cover them. So End of Dragons was a highly anticipated expansion by the community, since Cantha was a fan favorite in Guild Wars 1. It was really like the developers had an emergency situation, they got relit for a new X-Pack, and they put the kibosh on the Icebrood saga in the least developmental heavy way possible, which is how we got the whole Icebrood saga Champions chapters, which actually are a decent idea to reuse old maps and set up event lines, but their implementation of it was really bad, especially at first. They didn't have a consolidated currency, so we were juggling like 18 different currencies just for the Dragon Response missions. At some point, the devs need to just let people use one currency per game mode and just say F it. Right now, we see it in strike missions, where we have the new strike missions using green profit shards, whereas the old ones use blue strike shards, and that just is unnecessary. But I digress. ANET did the classic move with End of Dragons, where they introduce or reintroduce an old character, and right when they start to get interesting, they kill them off. This happened most recently with Mabon, where they introduced a Mersat, and that is one of the favorites of the community in a storyline that we haven't really explored. And then boom, they just kill him off just because. Like, we were able to cleanse Shrek in the story. We were able to cleanse Isgaren in the story. But Mabon, he just gets to die. That's whack. My trend is somebody that has been around for a long time and is one of the Fractal bosses that gets referenced multiple times in Fractals. The My Trend Fractal gets referenced by Ark in 98 when he's talking about reworking Horik's weapon. She played a major role in Season 1, and they introduced a way to reinsert Scarlet Briar into the story, which could have had a lot of interesting threads, but instead, My Trend does one final act of heroicism, and they kill her off instantly, which is pretty whack, and then they never bring it up again. We also see this with Blish in a storyline prior to End of Dragons. This is an ongoing theme with ArenaNet, but I'll share my thoughts on that when I actually play through POF and Season 4, which is actually next on my list. End of Dragons as a story was fine. I feel that the writing and adding in politics was annoying more than anything. Have you ever seen the Kanye West clip where he's like, Lady Gaga is the executive producer at Polaroid?
I like some of the Gaga songs. What the does she know about cameras?
That's kind of how I feel about the horrible writing. And I'm just sitting here like, what does this have to do with killing dragons? Like, why is this included? Besides that, the story was okay. It had good flow through the maps, decent jokes overall, and the politics in video games doesn't really make a bad game good or a good game bad. It's just kind of an irritation. I don't see the need for it to be there. On the actual End of Dragons side of End of Dragons, there was a brief explanation of why we had to fight Suwon the way we did with the whole extractors thing. I think the devs should have taken a darker tone with the story overall, and so we had both Suwon and Aurene die at the end. Like, the void gets cleansed, but Aurene dies in the process, or turns into like a crystal hibernation mode or something like that. They had to write in some stuff about, oh, well, she absorbed a lot of magic, she's going to sleep, which is cool, and it vibes with the whole Elder Dragons wake up, eat, eat and go back to sleep thing. But I think it would have been better just to have her die at the end. Beyond that, I only really got to play for about 5 or 6 hours, and we did achieve another important goal on this account, which is the Skyscale. I blasted through a new friend collection, and after getting all of the charred quartz, that was my immediate focus. So I did run into 2 other bottlenecks, one in Amnitas and the other one in Skywatch Archipelago. Currently, I didn't play those maps enough to have the available currency for some of the provisioner items that I needed, so I won't really be returning that storyline until the new update, which will then finish the story entirely. Overall, those maps don't really seem valuable outside of legendary open world armor, which I will probably maybe do on this account eventually. But honestly, if I'm just doing rifts, I might end up actually quitting the game if I have to do any significant amount of rift farming. Moving forward, I think my next priority will be Path of Fire in Season 4 to unlock the remaining mounts. We're getting pretty close to a Wizard's Vault reset, which will actually fund 250 gold I need for the Griffin. So if I could get that mount and the Roller Beetle, we will be in a good position to knock out a Corteria map completion to set us up to craft 2 legendary weapons from this starter set and reset starter set. So in a few episodes, we might actually be able to craft 2 Generation 1 legendaries, and we'll kind of see how that works out when we get there. Like usual, I will be posting some questions and getting some comments, and since we did hit 3K subscribers, I do have something special I want to do for you all, so stay tuned until the end. First question this week: what story thread do you wish the developers expanded upon? This can be personal story stuff. I know that there are some threads about Sylvari not being born to the Pale Tree that could have been followed. There's Isles of Janthier stuff. There's Palawajoko related stuff. And it's been a while since I've done all of the stories, so I'll keep a lookout for these moments as I'm playing through. And the second question: what do you hope the next expansion has as its primary selling feature? Soto had weapon mastery training and legendary armor. Others had gliding, mounts, skiffs, and fishing alongside elite specs. And there's been some decent discussion in the Guild Wars 2 community on what you could add to the expansion to make it appealing, or what reworks they could incorporate. I feel like I have some ideas on this topic, but I'd like to hear what you guys think. And pretty soon we'll get to see if any of those ideas are actually being implemented with the next expansion announcement. Now getting into last week's comments. The PvP community came out in force stating that PvP is by far the most underrated content type, and I kind of know why it's underrated. Solely, it is a gold per hour problem, and it is a toxicity problem. The Guild Wars 2 community is very family friendly, so when it comes to competitive game modes, when it's a team game mode and somebody is not pulling their weight, it makes sense that people get upset, but the tolerance of that ideology doesn't really happen because people want to just kill monsters and everybody tell them that they're a big boy and look how strong they are. The second reason is because of the gold per hour thing. The Guild Wars 2 community is very hyper focused on gold, when in reality, if you just play and you don't worry about it, you'll likely have the gold you need when you need it. I mean, I went from 300 to 0 for the commander's tag, and I'm nearly back up into the 80s without even doing any kind of farms. Just playing the game, working through it, and I haven't even really been doing tier 2 fractals or anything. So I think if they wanted to make PvP more played as a game mode, they just need to throw some gold at it. Like, make the reward tracks give like 40 or 50 gold per hour, and those queues would be popping quick. Also, talking about NPCs, there were a few that were interesting. First things first, I understand the Bram hate. He is an annoying character, and I think he did get some kind of redemption at the end of the Kaz Jory marriage thing, where he basically says that he's in therapy and he's working through it. Overall, he is just a rash, loud, obnoxious character, and that's kind of what Norn were supposed to be. At least he isn't just big human, which a lot of these characters end up being written as. Getting into some of your comments, my man Homage says that he hates Glenna, which I only hate Glenna because she gets murked in Wing 3 whenever somebody doesn't babysit her, and that's not really her fault. That's the healer's fault. I actually like Glenna, and I think she has some great lines, especially in Wing 5.
Protecting the ghosts here from, well, herself, I guess.
Seems like there's more to it than that.
Sure does. I guess you're gonna find out.
Ever think you'd be in a place like this?
Of course not. We're mortals. In the underworld. Some of us aren't even human. Who'd have guessed the trail of bodies and skeletons would lead to the realm of the dead itself?
Her little banter gives those raid wings a lot of flavor, and the fact that she stuck it out with us through the 7 raid wings makes me think highly of her. She's definitely elitist like all the other dirty raiders, so I give her my respect. My man Zhang asked about relics, and to be honest, there are a few different relics that are used across every build in PvE, and I know that they're expensive for a particular slot or an upgrade, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward and definitely worth getting one. I wouldn't necessarily get it over other pieces of gear, but it is a pretty significant DPS increase if you just decide to not leave it empty. Yusuf asks about legendary back pieces, and there are 3 in the game: Ad Infinium, Ascension, and Warbringer, and the easiest to get is either Ad Infinium or Ascension. Overall, the ease and understanding is pretty equal among all 3, but Warbringer is locked behind World vs. World pips and World vs. World vouchers. The Ascension requires ranked PvP currency for pips, and Ad Infinium has a number of collections and fractal currency. So each of them has their own path and its own unique annoyances and time gates. But if you enjoy World vs. World, that'll be the easiest. If you enjoy PvE and fractals, then that one will be the easiest. I think Ad Infinium is probably the least gated since most people do fractals anyway. But if you have to go out of your way to complete any kind of game mode or content, it's gonna be rough. And with that, we are on to my announcement. I'm not exactly sure how to announce this, but in essence, it is a giveaway. And what I intend on giving away is the actual game. So either Soto or the new expansion or something along those lines. Because of you, my viewers, I was the recipient of another YouTube check, so I will be spending it all, giving it back to the people, and my hopes are to be able to buy 3 different individuals an expansion of the game. So there will be 3 winners, and if you're new and you don't have Heart of Thorns or POF, I can grab that for you. If you want Soto instead, I'll get that for you. Or if you want the new unannounced expansion, I'll get that for you. But to enter, you basically respond in the comments section with your preferred expansion and your account name, and I'll see if I can get some game codes, which I will then mail to the winner in game. Overall, I'm expecting to spend about $75 US of this check on this giveaway. And if you already have all that stuff, I can hit you with like $20 or $25 worth of gems instead. So let me know what you want in the comments and what your in-game contact information is so I can send you the codes. I'll be basically picking the 3 winners at the end of the month once the check clears. Overall, I wouldn't get any of this money without your viewership, your subscriptions, and so on. And I have some other ways cooked up for you guys to support the channel that doesn't involve you just giving me money for nothing. But once I get around to that, I will make another announcement about it. The thing is, I don't really need this money. I did start this YouTube channel just to interact with the community and stay engaged with the game. So the best thing that I can do with it is give back to you guys and hopefully make your game experience a little bit better. I also intend on doing this pretty regularly moving forward. So pretty much every time I get a paycheck from Daddy Google, I will be essentially giving it back to the community in some way. So if you aren't a winner this time, stay tuned because it will be happening again. With that, I want to thank you all for watching. I look forward to reading all of your comments, and thank you again to all 3,000 plus of you for your support of this channel. If you have not subscribed, please consider it. Hit the like button for the algorithm, and I will see you all on episode 8. Peace.